So you're asking, in regard to your practice of the opening movement, we step out, the hands come up, the hands go down. And initially you were thinking when the hands are coming up, you're focusing on the upward force, or when they're going down, you're focusing on the downward force or the downward principle in your body. And then all of a sudden you realized that's not what's going on. When you're thinking about downward, there's also upward. When you're thinking about upward, there's also downward, and there's outwards and forwards and backwards and inwards and outwards, right? In other words, you realize it's all happening simultaneous, and how is that even possible, right? So this, yeah, right. This gets to the heart of what Tai Chi is. And this is possibly why we have a hard time wrapping our minds around it. We tend to think in dualistic terms, either or, this or that, yin or yang. And the idea is that if you're doing one thing that is opposite of the other, you can't be doing the other because they're opposites, right? You can't do two opposing things simultaneously. And that's really, if you look at any version of the Tai Chi too, any version of the Tai Chi symbol, it says precisely what the Tai Chi symbol is trying to get you to understand. It isn't this or that, yin or yang. It's this, that, yin, yang. It's the whole point, right? This is a very difficult thing to grasp because, like I said, we think in terms of opposites, but Tai Chi is trying to get us to see that they're not opposites, they're complementary pairs. Now, if I'm correct, the Chinese character for yin and yang originated with a symbol that was sort of a drawing or a picture of the side of a mountain that receives light and the side of the mountain that's in the shadow. The one receiving light is yang, the one receiving in the dark is yin. And you can choose many different things like this, but the point of it is, it's not like the yang side is not the mountain and the yin side is, or vice versa. It's both the mountain, right? And so there's a seeming distinction, which we then tend to separate and make as two different things. But the truth is, they're one thing. This is tough. But actually, going back to Jeff's question and my talk about silk reeling and spirals, spirals solve that. Let me give you an example. I used to build cabinets with my father, right, for a living. And when you build cabinets, drill holes in wood. And when you drill a hole in wood, the metal part carves its way into the wood. But the wood that it's carving away has to go somewhere. And what it does is it travels back up the grooves between the blades. So you have one thing going in this way into the wood and something else coming out the opposite direction simultaneously. Two forces traveling along the same line in opposite directions, but they're actually complementary. Right? They're one happening creates the other, one happening allows the other. And I've talked before about imagining the body as being full of a bunch of little Tai Chi symbols, right? So, however you want to imagine that, little marbles, little grains of sand, or all the way down to water molecules, or whatever you want to imagine. But the idea is, right, what you have is a relationship. Outward, inward, positive, negative, empty, full, heavy, light, upward, downward, right? These are all elements of yin and yang, or yin and yang are ways of describing these apparent opposites. But really what they are is part of an exchange, part of a cycle, a flow, right? One replacing the other, one completing the other. And then one next to the other one changes that relationship, and the one next to that changes its relationship, and it's like all the little marbles are doing the Tai Chi change from yin to yang, and within themselves and to each other, and that pervades the entire system. So this is what I meant the other day when I was talking about what's happening is a holistic transformation. See what I mean? Not everything's going this way, or this is what I mean by motion. Right? The body makes this transformation, and the intention, whatever it is, whatever motion, whether it's this movement or any other movement, it happens throughout the whole body simultaneously. I was actually having this conversation with one of my advanced students the other day, and he was describing movements as sort of like a wave, starting in the foot, propagating out to the hand, right? And he had this propagation idea, beginning and end, and that's okay. That's fine, and it can appear that way, but I don't believe that that's exactly what's happening. I think of it more like a current, as in a river, right? The current is running through the whole river. It doesn't mean it runs through every part of the river at equal speeds or anything like that, but there is a current, and the current travels throughout the entire length of the river, right? And so that means that it's not that it starts here and ends here. You can't exactly say that. You can just say it's moving through the whole thing, okay? And so it's something a little bit more like that, or also maybe like the gears in a clock. They're all ticking along. Some are big, some are small, maybe slightly different shapes, but the same motive force simultaneously runs through everything, and they're turning in all kinds of different directions, all for the same intention to click that little second meter and the minute hand and the hour hand.
How come your mind?
Say that again?
How come your mind can be in one, the other, and everything? I don't understand, because the majority part of my life I have been concentrated on something. Let's say I want to understand a concept of whatever
Sure.
I'm reading, and I'm concentrating on that. I cannot concentrate on anything else, or else I'm going to like lose the track of what I'm reading and what is getting inside my capacity of understanding.
Sure.
But this is different. One part is here, and then the other part goes another place, and then it goes a different. Oh.
Yeah. Well,
How come that happen? Is that the mind? Is that my imagination? What's that secret?
without trying to get too far into this, we've talked about this in terms of yi and yen, right? You know, focused attention, focused awareness, and the field of awareness, right? You're assuming you have to do everything. But you actually, you have an intention, which is a yi, which is singular focus, right? But you also have sort of a general field of awareness, and a lot of what's happening is more what you allow to happen by virtue of being soul, right? By virtue of being in a state where change can happen. So you, that part of you you're thinking of that focuses on a single thing to understand a single thing, that's your yi, right? But the rest of the mind-body complex is transforming in accordance to that, and it's more about allowing things to happen and being present, having sort of being a mental, physical space for the transformation to happen, than it is about micromanaging the event. Yeah. Again, back to the difference between motion over movements. Yeah. Okay, so I think, are we good there?
Yes.
I mean, the rest of it, you just keep practicing. Yeah. Okay, cool. Speaking of which, let's get back to the mat.